Hello, welcome to the University of Brighton podcast. I'm Richard Newman. This is the podcast which catches up with students and staff from across the university to discuss their work and experiences. In this podcast, we're talking about childcare and balancing being a parent with studies and work. This year, extremely topical, of course, with more and more parents having to balance homeschooling with childcare and their working or educational life. Joining me is our Nursery Manager, Becky Pollack, and two students who balance their studies with being a parent. Amy Ray has just finished her marketing degree and Natalie Relton has just finished her law degree. So thanks so much to all three of you for coming on. Amy and Natalie, I'd like to start with you first, if that's okay. Can you introduce yourselves, tell us a little bit about you and your circumstances coming into uni? And I think we'll start with you first, Amy.
I've just finished my marketing degree. I have a little girl who is 7, and she's coming 8. So we have had quite an interesting time balancing being mum and studying. I don't really know what else I can say than that.
Well, we'll come on to what made you decide to come to university a bit shortly. Natalie, what about you?
Hi, so I'm Natalie. I have just finished my law degree and I have 2 children aged 7 and 9. So with them it was pretty difficult to do that, I won't lie. And yeah, that's my little introduction.
Okay, cool. Becky, let's come to you. You're the nursery manager. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your background and your role at the university?
Yeah, so I'm Becky and I am the manager at One World Nursery, which is based on the Moulscombe campus. I've been at the University of Brighton now nearly 2 years. It'll be 2 years at the end of August, which seems to have flown by, but so much has happened as well, so it's ironic. A little bit about me: I've been in childcare for nearly 10 years, but mainly within Brighton and Hove and West Sussex, variety of different roles from practitioner to room leader right up to area manager as well. So yeah, that's me. No children of my own yet anyway.
Okay, cool. So before we go into more of a discussion about balancing university and parenthood, Becky, could you outline the childcare options that in normal circumstances, so not in a COVID, would be available to students and staff?
Yeah, absolutely. So the university is open for 45 weeks of the year. So we're closed for 4 weeks over the summer, for 2 weeks over Christmas and a week at Easter. We have the flexibility for students and can offer them either a 45-week contract, so throughout the year that we're open, or for 38 weeks, so it fits in more with their timetable, and also it makes that option a bit cheaper. And we offer a range of sessions from a full day, which in normal circumstances is from 8 until 5:30, but there's also options of morning sessions and afternoon sessions and additional hours as well.
Okay, cool. Amy and Natalie, you both came into university and were already parents then. And I think it's natural that a lot of people would feel a little bit apprehensive. What made you decide to come to uni? It's up to you which one of you like to go first. Let's go for Amy.
I returned back to work after maternity leave and I just felt really stuck and wasn't really enjoying it, and I was like, do you know what, I'm gonna take a completely different route, and to do that I kind of needed to go to university because I couldn't transfer my skills, and I'd always really wanted to go, and it just seemed to fit in timing wise for my daughter to start school and for me to start university, so I just kind of went for it.
What about you, Natalie?
Well, I had my little one, my eldest, quite young. I was 20 when I had her, and I'd always kind of flip-flopped between studying. I did catering, I did a hairdressing course, and then I just worked. And I was just fed up with working really where I was, and I'd always had it in the back of my head that I either wanted to study law or I wanted to become a teacher, but never thought that I'd really had the academic skills to be able to do that. And then one day I was just sitting there and I thought, you know what, I'm just going to go for it. I'm just going to do it. So prior to university, I did have to obtain some GCSEs. So I did GCSE English and Maths, and then I did the Access course where I met Amy actually, and then I was accepted into university. So I was very, very chuffed with that, and it's something that I've always wanted to do. And you know, children don't hinder those opportunities. If anything, they're my real drive to be able, you know, to push myself to that limit. So, and I just thought I'm going to go for it, children or no children.
Were either you two concerned about the childcare issue before you came to university? Was that the main thing that was hanging over you, and wondering whether you had any concerns? And I think a lot of parents would, well, I think a lot of people, when you're a mature student anyway, would feel a little bit apprehensive about going back to university. But when you throw in children as well, it does potentially make things a little bit more difficult.
Yeah, absolutely, it does. And I was fortunate enough, like I said, to have had my girls a little bit younger. So when I started university, they were in full-time education. The only thing that I had to really deal with was my timetabling. So if I had a 9 a.m. start, my girls' school doesn't open until 8:40, and at that time they didn't offer a breakfast club. So that, for me, I was really stuck. And obviously, because they were in school, I didn't have the opportunity to be able to use the facilities at Brighton. But had I have, you know, just had them, then I probably would have used that. But I do have a large family, and they were really, really helpful. And I do have an extensive list of friends. So for me, it was just figuring out who's having them on what day and to fit in with the timetable. So
yeah, it's a similar thing for me. I was a bit worried about the school drop-offs and pickups, because you also want to be there for those, especially because my daughter had just started school. But my mum's kind of my right-hand childcare, and she always stepped in where needed. And my course leader was really amazing and said, if there's some timetable issues that you can't do because you need to be taking your daughter to school, just let me know and we'll have a look and see if we can shift some of your lessons to a different one at a different time, which I managed to do a few things, and it really worked for me actually.
Becky, it's interesting to ask you about how the nursery sort of works around, I guess, was a strange sort of timetables. The timetables change for students a lot. It's not like a 9-to-5 job, which a lot of people would put their children into nursery. So what sort of flexibility is there when it comes to what the university offers?
There's a huge amount of flexibility, because, you know, we have to offer that. And often it depends on the course that the student is on. But sometimes students can give me sort of a full term of the sessions that they're required for their child to be in, or it might change weekly. But the balance is about making sure that we've always got that availability, that if something came up or they needed a bit of extra time before an exam to study, that we can fit them in. That's the crucial bit. And you know, it's just about communicating with them. And some students are brilliant and they'll give you all their sessions, and then others, while balancing lots of different things within their life, take a little bit of reminding. But as long as you've got those strong working sort of parent-carer partnerships with families, then it works well.
Amy and Natalie, you both said that there's no reason for children to restrict your education and what you want to do with your lives. And later on is when you decided to do something a little bit different. What would you say to parents who are in a similar situation and maybe a little bit concerned about taking that plunge? And I'm also interested to know, are you both local to the area as well? So was it an easier thing to come to the University of Brighton?
Yes, so I'm based in Lewes, so Brighton was the option. So it wasn't really a case of looking at any university, because I wanted to remain living here close to my family. So it was between Brighton and Sussex, but Brighton is better for marketing. What would I say to other people? I'd say do it and think about it later. It's kind of, the Access course that I did with Natalie, I think I signed up about 2 or 3 weeks before it started, and I kind of went, I'm just going to do it and work out how things work. And actually these last 3 years has worked out better for me and my daughter than I think me working, because I have been around a bit more. Yes, it is stressful at times with trying to balance everything, but it has just worked for us. And it's really nice that as she's grown, I've grown, and our life has just been nice, really.
Yeah, I just to echo really what Amy said, to be honest. I didn't have the luxury of being able to apply to other universities, because I too wanted to stay local, because I'm in New Haven. And I wanted to be there, like Amy said, you know, to do the school drop-offs, to be able to go to school plays. And I do have the family around me, but I would see, I'm a bit of an overthinker, so before applying to the access course and everything else, I'm always what if, but then I just thought, okay, no, I've got to stop regretting the things. You know, you can't regret the things that you do, regret the things you don't do. And I thought in my head, it's always something that I've always wanted to do, so I do just have to take the plunge and worry about what's to come next, like a bit later on. So the only issue that I really had was timetabling, but I'm sure we'll come on to that. And that's when childcare starts getting a little bit difficult, is when you're not really giving your timetable in advance. But yeah, that's the main thing for me. But you just have to go for it, and you'll always sit there wondering, oh, what if I should have done that. And you can't really. And you know, you've got your children, so you just want to make the best for them as well, and whilst also being really, really proud of yourself for doing something so amazing.
Becky, I guess there is a situation where most students who are parents, I guess the majority would be from the sort of local area, but do you have situations where students have relocated to come to the University of Brighton, and what sort of support can the university offer in that situation?
Not really in the time that I've been here, but I do have student parents who travel, which in the current situation and the way things are looking sort of come September is looking to be quite challenging. But I mean, in terms of what we can offer, there's a support and help above us in Tythe Barn. We've got student advice where they can offer, and we often signpost people up there to seek advice about accommodation and also financial help as well. So there's a great team up there, and lots of expertise with regards to that. But it's not really something that I've come across at this nursery, really, in terms of people coming specifically to, you know, moving from one area, or, you know, sort of moving house from where they live to come and live in Brighton. But I'm sure it will happen. I mean, there are foreign students that we've had that are student parents, but in terms of supporting them, they've sort of already tick those boxes in terms of finding somewhere to live, you know, locally to access the nursery and the university. But there is still that support there if they need it.
There'll be different ways that students can find childcare. Amy, Natalie, did you have support from parents, or did you rely more on schools and after school clubs and breakfast clubs and things like that?
Yeah, for me, my main one is my mum or my sister, so close family. With her being at school, I think it was a lot easier because you knew exactly she was going to be in there 5 days a week, so it was fine. Yeah, the after school, I mean, there is breakfast club and after school options, but like I said before, I was quite fortunate that my course leader let me adapt my timetable where I could, so I really could minimise the amount of kind of late stays that I needed to be there for, and really try and cram in my lessons into the school hours, so I could be there as much as I could. If not, my mum and my sister was quite happy to do the pickups and things.
Yeah, so for me, my girls' school don't have an after school club, so it was pretty difficult on some days. I had to find childcare 3 days a week, which isn't horrific, but sometimes it was quite stressful, because the people that that helped me out was my nan, my mum, my mother-in-law and friends. And on the days, they did alternate weeks, so it wasn't too much of a burden on them. And what I would have to do was find a friend to pick them up from school, then to give to my mum, because she also had a pickup at another school. So it was just figuring out what days who was getting the girls. And I did have a big old diary. You definitely need a diary.
And Becky, it'd be nice to, I mean, not everyone has the luxury of having parents or family around to support with their childcare when they're coming to the university. So I think coming back to what you said earlier on about one of the biggest concerns, I guess, might be about finances and trying to balance going to university, paying for your studies, and if you're doing it full time, money to actually afford the childcare. So could you tell us about the sort of finance options that are available at the nursery?
I mean, the prices for students are subsidised, so the students will pay less. I mean, it's again, it's about having those conversations with individual students and sort of finding out what their circumstances are. We don't have sort of set finance options, but just understanding what their needs are and seeing what we can offer them, and sort of, as opposed to perhaps having them needing to do sort of a minimum amount of sessions, or them being quite rigid. Again, we make it flexible, so if they only really need a morning session, and we can add on an extra hour as opposed to making it a full day session, just to try and bring that cost down, then that's what we do. But it is really just about assessing each individual circumstance and working with them.
Sure. Natalie, you mentioned already about timetables, and that is going to be the trickiest bit because things do change term to term. But Amy, you've also mentioned as well that you had quite a lot of support from your course leaders, from your tutors. So how important is it that you make it quite clear at the start your circumstances to your personal academic tutor, for example, or a student support and guidance tutor? How important is it that you make sure you talk to them about what you need to make sure you can get the best out of the course, and that they understand what you need?
I would just say keep talking to them. A lot of them have children themselves, so they actually understand even more where you're coming from. But if there was some times where my daughter might needed a bit more attention, she was really clinging, so my head wasn't quite focused on my studies, I just communicated that, and everyone was like, it's fine, we can work it. There's sometimes they might be able to shift certain deadlines, but I was really supported. But I would just say keep talking to people. The more you talk, the more they know, the more they understand.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, with the timetable and living in New Haven, my girls' school sometimes do not have the same half term as I do, or reading week, enrichment week, should we call it? And so that was really difficult, because I'd have to find the childcare for the full 3 days. I mean, luckily my timetable didn't change term to term, but the only downside with the timetable is you get it a couple of weeks in advance. Now, a local childminder to me had my girls a bit younger and needed the full-time childcare. It would have been difficult to have got them a slot. Now, I don't know how the childcare works at the university, but placements here need to be booked well in advance, because there are a lot of children in the area. So that for me was a bit of a struggle in half term. But I have to admit, all the lecturers were absolutely brilliant. Some of the lectures my girls actually attended because it was half term for them, and I couldn't get any childcare that week, so they popped into lectures with me, popped into seminars, and they were really, really supportive about it. Really, I cannot fault them.
Have things all changed for you since COVID? How did it sort of influence your the end of your studies? I think for Amy and Natalie, I think Amy, starting with you first, did it make a big difference to things for you?
Yes, because I had a whole timetable planned of how I was going to map out my last assignments. Lacey would have been in school, so that would have been fine. And then it was like, oh no, you're going to be with me 24/7. So it became really challenging, and my whole timetable kind of got flipped on its head of what I'd planned to do, because I had to suddenly become a homeschool teacher, which was great fun. So a lot of it, it was late nights, sitting in my bed, pen and paper, doing what I can, and then kind of getting up and being teacher to my daughter. So yeah, it changed completely. And it was a very interesting time. Yeah, but I got there, so it can't have been too bad.
Yeah, I was just going to say, like, I had, like Amy, I had mapped out everything that I needed to do, because I had 4 exams and 2 portfolios to do. So it was extremely testing, I'm not going to lie. As much as I love my girls, they need attention too, and you know, they need the breakfast, they need the lunch, they need the dinner. So you know, just when you're getting your head right into whatever exam prep I was doing, mummy, I need this, I need that. So it's like, oh my god, this is so stressful. So that, I mean, and what I would normally do is, because my lessons would have finished end of March, and obviously they don't break up until sort of end of July. So what I had planned to do was go into uni on the, you know, Monday to Friday when they're at school, sort of 9:30 till 2:30 I would go, and then I could sit in the library for that full day and have that headspace to map out all my exams, all my portfolios, and that just went out the window. So I just had to make the best out of a bad situation and hide some grey hairs, really.
Yeah, I mean, really tricky, Becky. The world was very much turned upside down, and the nursery having to close. I mean, what was the initial, what happened initially when all that happens? And then we're going to get on to talking about what the nursery's been offering since, and how students and staff can really get the most out of your expertise.
Yeah. So we closed on Friday the 20th of March. And even now, I can't quite believe that we're in August, and I've had birthdays, and yeah, lots has happened. But it's been strange. It's been a real roller coaster. But really, what we've had to do, and what everybody's had to do, is adapt as best as we can. And really, what I was just really hoping for and conscious of was just to make sure that our existing families, you know, and other student parents and staff parents, carers, that even just wanted to talk things through, that we would be able to offer that. So the team and I sort of cracked on with making sure that our online learning journal, we use a website called Tapestry where you can record children's development. We use that as a tool and a platform to stay in touch with our families and the children. We also tried to offer, or we did offer, a couple of persona doll sessions, which was really fun, where we had a company that comes in and sort of introduces the children to a doll and talks about problems. So we talked about why we were all at home and what coronavirus was. So that was really successful. So I've just really tried to just kind of keep the general hum of the nursery community alive, and just be very clear and make it clear to the families that we're still here, and that we can talk to you, or we can offer a video chat or a phone call. And that's generally, you know, that's what families want and need, is literally, it might seem like a real challenge that they're going through, but just to be able to talk something through can make people feel a lot more at ease.
And this is something that's so open to students and staff, regardless of whether they have children in your nursery. Is that right? It's open to everyone. And how can people access that?
So for our remote service that we've been offering, really all they need to do is email us, and the email is on our childcare web pages. Send us an email, and there's a telephone number as well, which comes straight through to me. And then we can sort of get to know what the issue is, or what the challenge might be, or just sort of get a little bit of background, and then we'll arrange whatever really feels comfortable. Some people might feel more comfortable just having an email conversation or just a phone call, or we can even arrange a video chat.
Sounds great, and we'll pop the links in the podcast description. Just staying with you, Becky, for the moment. I mean, clearly the situation is always changing. We're recording this in August, but what are the plans to reopen the nursery when we get through to autumn?
So we're working hard behind the scenes to make sure that everything's in place to be able to open safely and efficiently, hopefully in September, hopefully we're aiming to be in line with the new academic term. But as you say, things are forever changing, and you kind of hear things in the news and you wonder what's going to happen next. So we're kind of just taking each day as it comes. We're getting great advice and support from health and safety department within the university, and just sort of communicating that to our families as well to make sure that they know what to expect, really.
Amy and Natalie, how helpful will it be when schools return? How important is it to get children back in, to learn, to see their friends and their peers?
So important. And it's not even just so that we can have a bit of peace and quiet, but it's really tough having them with you all the time because they really require that social development. And especially as it is just me and my daughter, it got quite intense, and she really needs to have that time and just be a kid. I think that she's probably very eager to get back into school. So hopefully everything will be okay come September.
Yeah, same. I think it's massively important too. And the reason, not just because of COVID, but I didn't have a great time at school. I was a bit of a tearaway. So for me, it's really important for my children to get back into education and just to enjoy their education and not so much of the academic routine, but also just to, like Amy said, just to socialize with their friends. And that's how they're learning every single day. And the remote learning that we've been trying to do at home is just not the same. And I'm not a teacher by all means, but we made the best of a bad situation, as I said, and it's just not the same as you're being face to face with all of your friends and your teacher and just learning different things. I don't really like them having a lot of screen time. All were online as well, so it was difficult.
I guess you might echo that one, Becky. Would you? How much of an impact has this had over the last few months in terms of a child's development? I mean, maybe a couple of weeks and months might be okay, but if it goes on for too long, does it become an issue?
Absolutely, but every child is different and every home environment is totally different as well. I have to say, I totally take my hat off to both of you and to all parents and carers that have had to homeschool. I wouldn't have been able to do it, and that's not, at home isn't where you do that sort of thing. You can't recreate a classroom. You aren't teachers, you are their parents, and it's just taken. But I know lots and lots of parents that have done it, and we're literally counting down the days for the summer holidays. I just hope that, like some families that I've spoken to, some really great stuff has come out of this. And to connect with families. I know some families that have just had young babies, and both parents have been able to stay at home with them, have that time that they wouldn't have normally had. I can't say what kind of effect it would have had on a child's development, but it would impact them hugely. Amy, you mentioned about hopefully the transition going back to school for your daughter is a smooth one. That's a real uncertainty for you, and it will be a real uncertainty for the child as well. And one thing that we do in terms of preparing children for going off to school is trying not to too early talk about schools and bombard children with schools too much too early, because they can build an anxiety about it. But with what's happened, everybody's anxiety is high, and really it's going to be a slow start for us, and hopefully schools are going to have to be doing a similar thing, in that really we're going to have to go back to basics, and we just need to get children back in smoothly and get to know everybody, and yeah, it will be like settling children back in again for the first time, but it's just going to have to take it slow and be nice to each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's been a really, really tricky time. And so many people in so many very similar situations, having to balance work, studies, childcare. I want to ask you all to give maybe a few tips on from your experiences about how to make things a little easier. And Becky, you could probably give us a little insight into the remote offering that you've got at the moment as well. So we're recording this during these school holidays, of course. Let's go around and ask you all for a tip or two that could really, really help someone else. So shall we go? We'll go Amy, Natalie, and then Becky.
One thing that I found really helpful was kind of listing everything. I spent the last 3 years just planning, lists of what you had to do, and kind of trying to map out your day or your week as best you can. But the most important thing is to not be too strict on it, that if you don't get something done, it's not the worst thing ever. You can just pick it up again. So I done a lot of, this is what I want to achieve today, a lot of pen and paper, with assignments and things. I was putting pen and paper up on the wall and writing, so I could, even if I couldn't physically do anything, I could have a look at it in between trying to do something with my daughter. So yeah, just planning, and don't be so hard on yourself, really.
So yeah, pretty much again the same really. I mapped out our day-to-day of what I tried to do is I would let them study in the morning, and then I would do my studying in the afternoon, and I mapped out what we were doing for them. And then as the same really, I wasn't too regimented with it, because you just can't be, and it is a difficult time for them as well. So they don't need to be sitting there. They need also the home comforts, and a lot of things that we did was we learnt to bake, we learnt to sew. So it wasn't just the usual maths, English, history. We did a lot of things that are going to benefit them later on in life.
Yeah, lovely. I think that both of you are sort of saying that routine is key, but during this time and trying to, those expectations are the things that you guys were having to try and juggle at home with working and studying and homeschooling. I think one thing that I always like to try and remind people and parents and carers is to try and fit something in that's just for you, which at times I'm sure can feel like it's impossible, but if you have got some support around you, just making sure that there's something penciled in or something up on the wall or in your diary that's just yours and just for you, I think is really crucial. And also to try it where you can to make the best out of a bad situation, which I think we're all becoming quite good at.
Yeah, great advice from all of you. Thanks so much, all of you, for coming on. Just very quickly, Amy and Natalie, what are you going to be doing next?
Job hunting at the moment, which is great to come out of university into a global pandemic. So job hunting, and I am busy working on a blog site called The Student Parent. So that's going to be kind of just going through my journey and hints and tips and things to help others when they're going through their studying.
Lovely. I am going to take a year out and work for a year, hopefully, wherever I can. And then my plans for next year is to take the bar, which again is going to prove to be a little difficult with the kids because it's in London. And it's, it's a self-funded course, so I need to work this year to build up some funds for next year to become a barrister.
Brilliant.
Brilliant. Best of luck to both of you. And Becky, look, thank you so much for coming on as well. And we'll pop links in this podcast description so that people can access that help if they need it. They just want to chat to talk through some options and get some advice. Really great stuff. So useful. And if you're thinking about coming to university and you weren't sure about whether it could work for you as a parent, hopefully this has been helpful. If you're new to the podcast, there's loads in the back catalogue, a huge range. Do check us out at Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Just search University of Brighton. Thanks for listening.